When you're learning blacksmithing, there's one thing that you really got to figure out, and that is drifting. Drifting is where you take a piece of hot metal and you punch a hole through it with a tool, and it's a skill that you got to use for a lot of good projects. Hooks, decorative work, even fabricating things takes a lot of drifting and accuracy when it comes to drifting. So today I'm going to show you how to make a bottle opener. Now in order to do this project, you're going to need a few tools, a drift and a chisel if you want to do some decorative work. And I made a video on how to make those tools, so the link is going to be right up here. Go and watch that first if you haven't already gotten these tools in your hands. Then come back to this video and learn how to use those tools.
Alright, we're going to start this up by firing up the forge. Today I'm going to be using a railroad spike for the material I'm going to make the bottle opener out of. That requires tongs though, so if you want to use a tongs free option, just kind of find whatever material you have and start working with that. So the first step for this bottle opener and in drifting in general is to get a flat surface. So we're going to flatten off where we're planning to drift in order to prepare it for when we drift the hole. Good rule of thumb when drifting is to make sure there's ample material, so then when you stretch it out to make the actual hole, there's material to compensate for that. You don't want your hole stretching and breaking the material. That's never fun. Alright, let's get drifting. I'm going to move over to a different anvil to use the Pritchel hole. If you have a hardy hole, you can also use that, but Pritchel holes work best. To start your drift, mark it by hitting in the middle of the material. And this first heat or two is just about defining where you want that hole and kind of marking it out, but not quite breaching it. And to avoid excessive warping, you're going to flip over the material and start drifting from the opposite side every other heat, as you can see me doing right here. Once you've breached and made a hole, you're going to keep on doing every other side in order to, one, avoid warping, and to just make sure the hole comes out evenly. And then it's just a game of widening out the hole. You do this by going through it with the drift a bunch of times. I move it over to the hardy for this part since it has more space, and then eventually we'll start using an even wider drift just to get that hole as wide as we can. And remember, always when drifting, you need good heat. This helps put less stress on the metal, especially when you're widening like this, and it prevents the metal from tearing and breaking, which makes it so you don't have to redo your project. Now, I don't have a drift that is wide enough to make a hole that will open a bottle, so I made sure to widen out the hole to be wide enough to go around the horn of the anvil. Reason being, so you can do what you're seeing now. I put the hole inside the horn and then I tap the edges along the edge of the bottle opener. This in turn widens out the hole to get it to the width I want. Make sure when you're doing this that you're evenly distributing all the blows in order to keep a circular shape. This is a great way to widen out a hole without having to make a whole new other tool. Now, in order to make this bottle opener functional, it needs to have a lip at the bottom, so we're going to form that using the drift that we used to punch the initial hole. Hit it at the bottom a few times like you're seeing here, and it should make a nice little lip that will pop the cap off pretty nicely. And no product is truly done until you make it look good, right? So I'm going to use the rounded side of my ball peen hammer in order to tap out some of those harsher hammer marks that I might have left over from flattening earlier, and to just smoothen out the project as a whole. This is a technique that I've liked to use for a lot of products actually, because it just provides a unique texture and it looks really aesthetically pleasing, and it's pretty easy to do in some finishing heats, you know? And if you've been around the channel for a while, you know that I like to touch mark my projects. A touch mark is basically just a personal creator stamp that you put onto your products to let people know that you made them. I'll be making a video on how to make one of those for yourself soon, so be sure to subscribe so you see that when it comes out. And then I'm just going to add some decorative lines with a chisel. This is the part of the project where you can get really creative. You can add as many lines, dots, whatever you want with tools that you have. And yeah, you can get as complex or as simple as you want. I just went simple for the sake of the video. At this point, the forging is done for the bottle opener, but it's not quite finished yet. Once the project is cooled, I like to use a wire brush finish, especially if it's a heavily forged out project. You can use a bench grinder attachment, an angle grinder attachment, or a drill attachment like you're going to see me using. The drill attachment is just a little bit more tame. It's going to keep it a little bit more rustic, and I've found that it doesn't remove as much material. Overall, this does a really good job of keeping that forged out look while still making it nice and shiny and looking good. Now, what good is a metal product if it's going to rust, right? I like to wax finish projects like this, and in order to do that, I'm going to heat up the bottle opener with my blowtorch. Once it's nice and warm, I'll apply wax by melting it on, and once there's a good layer everywhere, I'm going to wipe it down just to make sure there's not an excessive amount of wax on it, but it still clings to it. Like I said, this is super important, so then you can seal off your products so then they don't rust and they just have a better quality overall.
So just like that, you now know how to forge out these bottle openers. Like I said at the beginning of the video, great for selling, great for practice, and hopefully you can improve your drifting skills a little bit. If you're looking for more tutorial videos on how to learn things for blacksmithing, I've got a great video right here that shows you how to forge one of these. Great way to learn bending, and it's another great seller and beginner blacksmith project to get you started. Go check out that video, like, subscribe, all that stuff helps me out, and I'll catch you in the next one.